You have to come.
Good afternoon, and let me see here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Does everyone have the materials? So, I had to send out revised materials, and we also mailed out some materials for the commissioners who requested on hard copy. Okay. Let's see here. Is that better? Okay, so today is our budget workshop. An agenda, we're going to just have a brief overview of the TREC budget structure and our fund accounting, an overview of our staff reports provided by the Financial Services Division, an overview of the FY21 TREC budget, our 5-year revenue trends and projections, travel guidelines for the commissioners, and our Q1 performance measure data. Okay, and I know most of us already know all of this, and so I'm not going to read everything on these slides verbatim, but it is legislative session, and for those agencies who are not SDSI, they had to submit a legislative appropriations request. They're going to be struggling and hoping to at least receive the same level of funding that they had received the past biennium. Well, with us, we're self-directed, semi-independent. That means that we're not subject to receive appropriations authorized by the General Appropriations Act. We're not subject to lapsing any unencumbered appropriations at the close of the fiscal year. The budget is prepared annually, and it is approved by the Governing Commission. And the agency is responsible for all direct and indirect costs of the Commission's existence and operation. And statutorily, we have the authority to set the amounts of fees, penalties, charges, and revenue required as necessary for the purpose of carrying out the functions of the Commission and funding the adopted budget. So each month, my staff and I, we prepare the finance staff reports, and they're submitted to Amber, who posts them on the website under our monthly reports. And as a part of that, we're trying to maintain our agency transparency. And so what's included is the S1 budget status report, and that's going to provide you a cumulative accounting of revenue collected and the expenditures. And let's see if I have a copy of that. Okay, so this is a copy of what the S1 report looks like. And as mentioned, this is going to be a cumulative reporting of where we are. And then any variances will be reported and any comments will be noted on the side. The next report that my staff provides, let's see here. My mouse is not working.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting. Would you mind please zooming in larger so that we can see, if you can?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Is that better?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I'm not seeing anything except the title page. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Okay. So right now we should be on slide 4 in the workshop materials. And I was showing an example of the S1 budget status report.
But I'm not seeing anything except that, except the title.
Okay.
So I must not
can
be
anyone
into
else
the right
see
screen.
the other pages?
I think it may be an issue of fitting the presentation screen in your view. It might be if you right click, no, not. There's a mechanism for clicking and hitting, for allowing something to fit in the frame. Maybe a right click. Does that help?
I think there's a square on the top right.
I just found it. I was able to do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that assistance, Ms. Buckholz. Okay. So in addition to the budget status report that provides the cumulative accounting of the revenue collected, we also provide the S1A report, which is TREC operating account investment holdings report. And this is information regarding the agency's investments in our cash equivalents. And so an example of this report looks like, let me scroll down.
I'm not getting this at all. Is this a printed material?
This holdings report, ma'am?
What you're talking about, all I do is see pictures of the commission.
Oh, okay.
It should be. Don't they have a hard copy, Renata?
Yes, sir. You should have a hard
Yeah.
copy.
Okay.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could take them to that page on the hard copy.
Okay, we're on page 4 in the hard copy of your materials.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's also that several of us are using 2 devices. And I know when I clicked on my picture, it popped up with what you were showing. If that helps anybody.
Okay. In addition to the S1 budget status report and the TREC operating account investment holdings report, we also provide the real estate recovery trust account report. And that's an overview regarding the investments within the real estate recovery account, any disbursements, and the current balance. We provide the S3 real estate recovery trust account payments and repayments report. And that provides the payment history, the number of claims paid in the year, the potential claim payments within the next 90 days. And lastly, we provide the real estate inspection recovery account report. And that provides an overview regarding the investments within the real estate inspection recovery account, any disbursements, and current balance and pending claims. Going to page 5. So our FY21 budget highlights. So the biggest highlight is that we saw a format change. We eliminated the strategic reserves, and we recently amended the budget just a few moments ago during our regular session to report the actual beginning balance as opposed to the projected beginning balance that was approved in the budget document in August. Our projected revenue of 11.3 million is an increase of 5% as compared to the FY20 budgeted revenues. And our projected expenditures for 21 is a 7% increase from the approved 2020 budget. And this is primarily due to an increase in salary costs as a result of an increase in FTEs that were approved in FY 2020, and also the first phase of the licensing database replacement. And so what you're going to see now, beginning on page 6, is something that I've been kind of creating so that I could see, monthly, like seeing the information in a cumulative form in the budget status reports. It's good. It gives you big picture, but I also like to know how are we doing on a month-to-month basis. It lets me see trends. It lets me analyze any spikes that I may see. So for the month of September, our revenue that we collected was 1.3 million, and our expenses for the month of September were $1,077,946. And so as you can see, I also have target achievements and changes from the last year because I'm looking at the information to see how we executed funding and how we collected revenue last year as opposed to this year, and seeing if we're seeing an increase, are we seeing a decrease, so that we can kind of gauge what those trends are. And so this also helps us kind of gauge and to see whether or not, 1, our revenue will exceed our expenditures, or 2, if we're going to have a problem where we're not collecting as much and we do need to tap into that available fund balance that is in the Texas Treasury Safekeeping Trust Company. So for the month of September, like I said, yes, I'm sorry. Did I hear a question?
I've got a real quick question if I can.
Yes.
Okay. I love the idea of tracking it monthly. I think you can look back at historical data and kind of predict it. My question is, last year we shut down renewals for about 90 days to 120 days, and we had all those renewals come in. I guess take those and kind of separate them on where they should have been the year before to try to get an accurate number, because June's probably going to look pretty crazy on renewals just the way it was.
Yes, sir, and you're absolutely correct. So we are going to see, it's my prediction that we're going to see coming from March, beginning in March of this year through August, we're going to see slightly, larger numbers as compared to last year, for the simple fact that we did have all of those deferrals because of COVID. And then when we started having the renewals, we started seeing an influx in funding at the end of August and then beginning of September. And so I think they're trying to catch up now because, that deferral period is over, but we will see some differences. And you're right, we do need to take a look at that and be able to separate and identify that, that was a triggering event and we should have higher than normal revenue because we did have those deferrals.
And are we tracking, I know we track applications, are we tracking how many people have passed the test through Pearson VUE? How many they're testing and how many have passed the test? Because I know a large percentage never take the test that apply for the application. How much data do they give us as far as new licensees passing the test?
We get a monthly report from Pearson VUE that shows the number of people who applied to take the test, the number of people who took the test and who passed, the number who did not pass. We also receive data as to, who may have taken the test and received a waiver. So Pearson VUE is really good and thorough with the information that they provide us, and I'd be more than happy to start sharing that information with you as well.
Okay, thanks. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And then
Renata, this is Mike Williams.
Yes, sir.
On your operational expense, I think you've done a great job doing it on a monthly basis. Is there any way you can break down your operational expenses? Or is that too much detail on a monthly basis?
No, sir. I have it in a detailed form. It's just I typically just roll it all up. Give me 1 second here. Let me. And I can show you.
Let me tell you, while you're doing that, let me tell you the reason why. If you go back to slide number 5, and I'm just going to make a comment. You have to go all the way back. But yes, we have a 7% increase for the expenditures. But I really would like to know how that 7% increase breakdown. What does that look like? And I guarantee you the salaries are going to be probably more like 15%.
Got
if
it.
you just break down salaries, which is a concern of mine.
So in looking at this dashboard that I've created, I don't have it broken down as to, how much each person's salary is. I just have a lump sum for the salaries, but in the cumulative report and also in our overall budget report, we have that information as well.
Okay. What is that increase in salaries as opposed to last year look like on a percentage basis?
Okay. Give me 1 second.
I know you got a 7% overall, but if you break that down, what does that look like?
Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. Let me show you this actual. Okay. So I have all of this data in here from last year, and I don't have that percentage calculated, but I will add that as another field to give me that percentage. But last year for salaries, can you see this okay? Or should I increase it?
I'm on the cell phone. Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second.
I don't have internet access, so.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. And
That's
so I
perfect.
went through. Yes. So as you can see, last year we spent, or we budgeted, I'm sorry, 2.6 million for salaries. And this is just for TREC alone. And then this year we're doing 2.7 million. But again, we had some positions that were approved in FY20 that weren't funded for the end of the year. So that's going to be an increase. And then we also have some new positions, just positions that we're hiring and we're backfilling those positions, and so we're going to have increased salary costs because we actually have filled those vacant positions. But I can definitely include what the increase is year over year for salaries as composed, instead of just giving you that year-to-date figure right there.
Yeah, and we all knew that we were going to fill more positions, including positions like yours, so salaries would go up. And you guys have done a great job of finding other areas to decrease. I just want to make sure we maintain that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Okay. All right. So going back to the presentations, back on page 6. Let's see. Okay. At September, we look at October. For the month of October alone, we collected $1.2 million of revenue. We had $1.2 million of expenses. And so essentially we had a net profit of $27,000. Of course, my goal is for us to get to a balanced budget approach. And in order for us to get there, we have to consistently have our operating expenses at our budgeted amount or below our revenue. In our approved budget, we did approve for our expenses to exceed our projected revenue. But as we've all stated in the direction I've been given from the budget committee, is that we need to have a balanced budget approach. And that's how, I'm able to kind of keep a pulse on this, but then also going forward as we begin the budget formulation for FY22, just knowing that, whatever our revenue projections are, we need to make sure that our expenses do not exceed that so that we can continue to stay within our means. Okay, and then November, we had a slight decrease in our revenue collection, but we also had a slight decrease in our operating expenses as well. And then in December, we went back up slightly, 1.1 million, expenses, $1,046,000, net profit, $123,000 for the month. And so for our year-to-date dashboard from September through December, we've collected 4.7 million. We had operating expenses of 4.3 million. And we have an operating or net profit of $418,300. Okay, and I also provided on page 11 of your materials a budget versus actual dashboard. So looking at the first quadrant, our total revenue, actual year-to-date revenue is 4.7 million. We budgeted for the year $11.3 million, but if we split that up quarterly, by December, we should have collected 3.7 million. So we exceeded our target for that particular time period, and which is why the circle is blue and shows that 125% budget achievement, because we collected more than what we should have if we just went by what our budget target was. And that is a 15.3% change as compared to last year at that time, where we had only collected $4.1 million. And then again, on your right-hand side in the monthly actual versus budget, you can see for September, October, November, and December, what the amounts were that we collected. What the budgeted amount is, it's $945,880. So we basically took the $11.3 million, divided that by 12, and On average, on a monthly basis, we need to collect at a minimum $945,880 in order to hit our revenue target for the year of 11.3 million. And so this shows us where we're at from a year-over-year perspective and a monthly actual versus budget standpoint. And then towards the bottom, you're able to see what's our biggest revenue driver. And for us, it's license fees. License fees make up the majority of our revenue. And for us, we collected $4.3 million of license fees, where our target, we were saying that we should have collected about $3.4 million. So license fees are our biggest driver for our revenue. We exceeded every area with the exception of education fees. For education fees, we only collected $119,000 as compared to the $133,000 that we were projecting to have collected during this time period.
Renata, it seems that the licensing fees were really on autopilot. Are there any ways that we can increase educational exam fees, those other areas, or any way that the agency can increase those areas?
I am not certain about how we would go about increasing education fees. Is Jennifer on the call by chance, or would Tony or Chelsea have any insight into that?
We can look into that.
Sorry, I'll defer to you, but I am on the call.
That's
great. Want me to ask the question again?
Sure.
Licensing fees, it seems as if it's on autopilot. That's what we're known for. But in those other areas that we're collecting fees, are there any way that we can increase those, the income in those areas?
I believe that there is. Jennifer, am I right that those are part of our fee schedule? So it would be a rule change?
They are part of our fee schedule, and I have recently actually initiated a kind of a research study to first compare what our education fees are as to those in other states. And then the second phase of my investigation was going to be, what is our actual cost for the review of these courses, just to see if we were, and that's something I just kind of initiated, on my own because I was curious as well. But yes, they are things they would require rule change, but I'm happy to continue doing this work and work with Renata and Chelsea and provide them the results of some of the information that I've been seeking.
I have a comment.
Informational results? You mean informational results or results on ways you can increase the income?
Well,
you can potentially increase the income. There's no. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I've been doing is nothing quite that official yet. It's just something that that I just kind of wanted to take the initiative on and see where we were. So it's really just the very beginning phases, and again, I can work with Chelsea and Renata and see what they might like to see, if anything, from the results of that. But yeah, everything would come before all of you and our staff before it would get anywhere to the level of a recommendation.
Okay.
I have a comment, if I may.
Yes.
I have a comment.
Yes.
On the education fees. I think that we also need to take into consideration that the change that we're looking at is 5%, and we have experienced an unusual year because the pandemic started, in the month of March, and that's really covering about at least 8 full months of last year, and I think that to see only, a lot of people lost their jobs, and then a lot of plans were on hold. And I think that the decrease is not substantial as to worry us at this time. I think we need to keep it under observation. We can, there are other possibilities. There were, right before the pandemic, there were many fees that were lowered. So I think that overall we're going to be okay. I think we just need to keep in mind that we are also last year is going to be unusual. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
That's agreed.
Just a real quick observation. Jennifer, on the education fees, that's the fee that providers charge for a class to be approved or renewed. Are those included in that?
That's correct, Chair. Chair Kestner, they are fees that are collected for the review of qualifying and continuing education providers, and then separately the review of each of their courses, qualifying versus CE, distance ed versus classroom.
Okay. And was there not an increase in that just a few years ago prior to us starting reducing some fees as far as renewals and transfers and stuff like that? Wasn't there an increase there a few years ago?
Yeah, I don't know that it actually was an increase. We used to have, well, many years ago when I first came on board to the agency, we actually didn't charge any fees for the review of qualifying courses or providers. About 7 or 8 years ago, I think, is when we started embarking on reviewing the content, and ESAC got really engaged in all of that. And then we decided that, or not we, but the committee recommended and the commission adopted rules that adjusted fees, we used to have, like, our CE course application was a flat fee of $150, I believe, for a 2-year approval. Then when we delved into the nitty gritty of the distinction between reviewing classroom versus online is when we adopted a little bit more complex, but to some degree a little bit less, could be cost effective for the provider, in the sense that we now have a $50 base fee for CE courses, for example, and then $10 per credit hour for the review of the content, and $5 per credit hour for, another 10 for the design and delivery. So if you only offer classroom, it's a reduced fee as opposed to multiple delivery methods. And the same applies for our qualifying courses. It's just a little bit larger scale.
And I know we're probably getting into sausage making. We probably don't need to do it this step, but the education fees are such a minimal amount of overall budget. I think the exam fees are going to continue to go, because we're hearing of 30, 40 people in every class during this pandemic trying to get a license. So I think that's why our income is really jumping, is there's so many people getting into business over the past 4 months or 5 months.
Yes, sir.
I agree.
Thank you for that insight. Thank you. Okay. And moving on to page 12 of the documents. This is also the expense dashboard. So we showed you the revenue. So here's the expenses. We actually had $4.3 million of expenses from September through December. We were budgeted, we had $15 million is our budget for the year, for our budgeted expenses for the year. And so from September through December, we should have, spent $5.3 million if we're gonna aim to hit that $15 million, which I'm okay if we don't. And so we didn't hit the $5.3 million. We only spent $4.3 million. And as compared to last year, we only spent $4.6 million. So that's a 7% decrease in what we spent last year. And, with our budget, like I said, it was primarily the salary increase, but also the licensing database system. And that was a huge, fairly large piece of our budget. And we're just now in the beginning stages of the solicitation process. So we are not expecting to see the amount of expenses that we thought we'd see for the licensing project this year, they're actually going to be pushed a little further out.
But
And so
now
I
this
anticipate.
is, yeah, I'm looking at
Yes,
your
sir.
budget. That's 4 months, right? That's 5.39.
Yes, sir. That's for
That's
4
that's
months.
for 4 months. Yeah, but
Yes,
if you multiply that by 3, that's closer to 16 million. So is our budget 15 million or 16 million?
it was 15 point. Give me 1 second. I do not. Sorry, I don't remember what that number is off the top of my head. And our
Well,
amount was roughly 15.6 million.
okay, so Jeff, you divide that by 3, that'll give you your 4-month
Mhm.
budget. I think that
Yes.
3.9 is maybe a little off.
Yes, sir. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay. And then as you can see, the majority of our expenses were with salary for this time period. Let's see, we spent 2.5 million as opposed to the budgeted of 2.7 million. But as you can see, that's 91% of our budget was for salaries. The thing that we did not, we came, I'm not gonna say we came a little off, but we were off with the rental of equipment. We budgeted that we should have spent 38,000 for rental of equipment, and we actually spent 61,000, and that was for increased copiers, the PC refresh that's going on. So we had quite a few additional expenses there, but nothing to worry about. Okay. The FY16 through 21 trend data for our revenue. So our budget analyst, Aretha Trice, she does really good work in trying to look at the numbers, the actual application and renewal counts, and see how that relates to our revenue and give us some data as to where she thinks we're going. And so I will be relying heavily on her analysis as we get ready to provide several different versions of the FY22 budget that we're going to be presenting and preparing for you guys for next month. But as you can see, we've historically under projected, and we've always, for the most part, exceeded our projections. And so it appears as though the agency just had a history of just being really conservative with our revenue projections. Okay. Next slide. This is our FY12 through FY20 trend data for our Texas Treasury Trust Company portfolio balances. This is just to show you from FY12 through FY20 what our ending balances were in the Texas Treasury Safekeeping Trust Company for our operating account for TREC. Okay. The next slide, page 15, shows you the FY13 through 21 license holder data. So the gold line shows you the entire agency license holder count at the end of each fiscal year. The blue line shows only the TREC license count. So this includes, the gold line includes TLCB and TREC. The blue line includes just TREC. And as you can see, TREC has the majority of the license holder accounts at the end of FY20 or even at the end of December 31st of 2020. So 4 months into FY21, our total license count for TREC was 208,000 license holders. The entire agency license holder count was 214,000. So we have 6,000 of those that are TALCB license holders, excuse me. The bottom portion of the chart, I'm sorry, the chart at the bottom says license holders versus staff comparison. This is just to show you how, as our license holder counts have increased, we've also had to increase staff just to be able to handle the capacity. Okay. All right. So now we transition to travel. Do we have any questions regarding the budget information that I just presented before we move on to the travel portion of the workshop? Okay.
And Renata, I wanted you to know that after discussing with the chair, because of the need to put the workshop and the commission meeting on the same day, I've asked Melissa to modify her presentation to just take questions because nobody is traveling right now. But I did want to make sure everyone was equipped with this information. So I apologize for the late notice on that.
Oh, no worries. And so we did have a...
Before we go to Melissa, Renata, thank you for digging in and putting these charts together and graphs together and trying to see exactly where everything's coming from. I noticed on the income over the last few months going into I forgot what report it was, the TREC fund balance for 12 through 20. It looks like we're getting a hold of where we need to be as far as expenses and income. But I just want to thank you for digging down and getting it more simplified for us to understand. And I know you have a lot of work to do, but I appreciate your effort. I know we're going to start trying to base it on number of licenses and not just kind of a shot in the dark. So thank you. You were something this agency needed.
Thank you, sir.
Renata, let me jump in and feedback on what Chairman Kestner just said. The new format makes it, for somebody who only got a B in accounting, it makes it just a lot more understandable for all of us. Thank you.
You are so welcome, sir.
Renata, this is Commissioner Williams. You are doing a great job, and it's a great foundation, great start, and I know it's going to get better. But I love the movie called Philadelphia with Denzel Washington was in it. He said, put it in like I was a fifth grader. Keep doing it that way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but you aced accounting. That's not fair.
I think Commissioner Russell has her hand up.
Yeah, I was also just going to say thank you. I am on another board that does theirs this way, and so it makes it really easy to understand. I may have a question even sometimes. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You are so welcome, ma'am.
I have a comment, and I commend you for the message that you sent right before you sent the documents that you just presented. Don't ever worry about being a little late. I'd rather you be right and you take as much pride as you did in sending the documents, because we have plenty of time. And I also, to the staff that is helping the budget committee, who has been attending everyone, Miss Huerta, and the rest of you who have been attending the budget committee meetings. It has been great. I also want to commend the staff because of the pandemic and because of budget constraints statewide and nationwide with what we're living. We are learning to live under our means. And it's it's not just, it's below our means to make sure that we are able to be okay and that we're able to comply with the Sunset Commission requirements. And I think, and it's an effort agency-wide, and I think that we're getting there and we're improving, and I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Miss Melissa, are you ready to answer any questions about the travel? Would you care for me to put that back up on the screen?
Yeah, if you want to put it back.
Sure.
So the travel is going to be very short and sweet, especially because at this time nobody's traveling, so you don't have to worry about getting reimbursed for your travel expenses. But I just wanted to give you who your, do you have it up there, Renata? Your contacts are. So you have this in your information. Amber is your main contact, and she'll be doing your hotel engine, your for your hotels and stuff. She'll be doing that for you. But Dion is the backup. Maria Lay, I just wanted to let you know she's our new travel person. She took over Rosie's position. Rosie retired at the beginning of January, so you'll be dealing with Maria for your reimbursement request. So does anybody have any questions? You should have your travel guidelines. Hopefully you have a trip checklist and a travel report. If you don't have any of these resources, please reach out to Amber or myself, and we will get these resources to you so you have those available. And then if you just go through the presentation, you see what the travel guidelines have and the trip checklist. But does anybody have any questions right now about travel?
Melissa, I've got one question. I know there are certain hotels we book because they're within the state allocation.
Yes.
How often is that looked at? Because I remember Commissioner Leonard last year on one of them, Bob, help me out. You stayed in one hotel where it was within the limit, but the parking was like $30 a night. So how often is that looked into at the state level as far as expenses?
That's something that the comptroller does. They have the contracts that they negotiate. So that's something that's with the comptroller's office. And I think they look at it every year to see what they can negotiate with to be the best rates for the state.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Huerta,
Yes, ma'am.
when was the last, do you recall, like, when was the last time that the mileage changed? And if you will please, just when it changes, if you will just please update us on that, because every once in a while, sometimes yearly, it changes.
Yes, ma'am.
Just so that we can update our report. That's the only.
Right, and it does usually every year in January. There's a new the reimbursement rate for mileage changes, and if there's a link, so on your travel guide, unless you have a paper copy, if you have the electronic copy, there's a link on there to go to the comptroller site so that you can see what the current rate is. And right now it went down to 54 cents in January.
56.
Oh, 56 cents.
Yes, ma'am. It went to 56 cents. And it's based on the IRS guidelines, yes. And it does change every January.
Was there excuse me, a follow-up question on this? Was there a change from the year before?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So 56 cents.
Any more questions? Y'all made it very, very easy for me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Okay. All right, moving on. We're almost finished. Is the performance measure data. And we're going to just kind of briefly look over the Q1 performance measure data. I'm not certain if it had been presented in the past, but these are the performance measures that are that were specified in our strategic plan for the agency. And we're going to start capturing that data, and eventually I would like to get to a point to see how we could relate the budget to these performance measured targets, if that's the direction of the commission. But right now we're in an information gathering phase, and we're collecting the data for the quarterly performance measures. And so for each division that had measures that were stated in the strat plan, we do have that data here for you so that you could see it all just on one page. And do we have any questions regarding the performance measure data? I would like to state that we did identify a potential typo with one of the targets for the performance measures, and that had to do with the customer relations division. And so we will be working with Deputy Director Slagle to get that amended. It's for the number of customers served in the contact center. It's supposed to be a cumulative performance measure, measured quarterly. However, the target specifies that it's 1 minute or less, but that's not really applicable for that particular measure, and that was just probably something that was a carryover, but we're aware of that, and we're going to be working to correct that target.
Any questions? Chelsea, is Tony on here? Or maybe Jennifer can answer
I am.
this.
I'm on here.
Okay. On the percent of applicants who pass the exam under Pearson VUE, it's 63.2. Is that the first exam, or is that just who ends up passing?
Jennifer can correct me on this, but I think that's usually a first-time pass rate, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, do you have, I don't have a copy of materials. Chair Kestner, are you looking at something?
Yeah, it's showing 63% pass it the first time and 76% of the brokers, and that just seems high.
That may be overall.
The higher number is definitely the overall pass
Yeah.
rate, but the reports that that you get should include first-time pass rate and then applicant pass rate.
This Jennifer, this is the performance measure data. So what we can do is double check that and make sure that it's spelled out on there, because you're right, it's confusing as to what that is, since we do get both of those numbers, and we'll clarify that moving forward, that what that number is that target number is referring to.
Okay, because it just seemed high, but okay, very good.
Thanks.
Okay, so any questions? So we're at the end. Okay. If there are no questions, I would like the opportunity to thank my staff, Melissa and Aretha, and the rest of the financial services division. They are very hardworking, and I really appreciate all that they do in preparation for these meetings and just our day-to-day business. So thank you, team. I appreciate you.
Thank you for all you do. Any questions? Chelsea, what else do we have on our agenda?
I believe you have covered it.
Okay. I believe the next agenda item is lunch.
I thought you had a burrito.
I actually had 2 burritos.
That was breakfast, right?
A bunch of burritos, so yeah, they were very good. All right, thank you.
I have a comment. I'm sorry. The Pearson VUE has come up several times during this meeting, and I would like to report that during the months of December and January, there were several meetings. I served on the Pearson VUE committee for testing for Texas sales and brokers, and that the team worked very hard. They reviewed. Questions were reviewed. It's looking fantastic. So we're very curious to see what the numbers will be. The tendency is to want to make sales and brokers, as you probably already know, more knowledgeable as to not just the normal things that we're seeing, but to broaden their knowledge. Even to the point that some of us who have been serving as brokers were pleased and surprised as to the level of education that is being requested. So I thought that you'd be pleased about that information. That's all I had to report.
Thank you. All right, anything else? Okay. Do I need a motion to adjourn this or just adjourn?
And I'm sorry, Chair Kestner, I just wanted to mention and Vanessa may correct me. I did see we have a couple other items on the agenda, but the commission, we covered it in the commission meeting. So agenda item 6 is request for potential future workshop agenda items, and 7 is discussion regarding future workshop meeting dates. I think we've already covered that, but I just wanted to make sure we covered our bases.
Right. Okay.
And the next item is to adjourn.
Right.
Okay. Very good. All right. Again, thank you everybody for your time. I know we were supposed to be here Tuesday, Wednesday, not Friday, but you know, we're the blessed ones. We have internet, we have phone, we have a warm place to be. So you know, think of those that aren't as lucky. Someone sent me a quote on Wednesday morning. It said, the things we take for granted, someone else is praying for. So just let's part with that thought that we are very blessed, and thank y'all for everything you do for our agency, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Renata, thank you. Melissa, thank you. Chelsea, thank you. Y'all have a great
Thank you all.
weekend.
Great job.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.